The story opens with the roar of a red-eyed monster. In 2045, Earth has become a battlefield where humanity fights for survival against monsters. At night, soldiers confront colossal, red-eyed creatures with writhing tentacles, using both guns and blades. The ground is covered with fallen soldiers. Amid the chaos, one soldier is cut down by a sharp tentacle, while another is killed as a claw pierces through his chest. A massive tentacle monster dominates the battlefield, its many mouths open and its crimson eyes glowing. Nearby, a lone soldier collapses to his knees, staring at the bodies around him. The monster shadow falls over him as a tentacle lashes forward to finish him. Just before the strike lands, a man appears and cuts the tentacle apart with a single clean motion. The monster roars and retaliates, sending multiple tentacles toward him from all directions. He lowers his stance and slices through them in swift succession. Another strike comes down, and he steps aside to avoid it. When a tentacle closes in again, he draws a gun and fires, destroying it instantly. He turns briefly to the fallen soldier and orders him to stand and keep moving. This man is Han Sung, the Supreme Commander of the Earth Defense Force. The soldier, shaken, gathers himself and responds before picking up his weapon and rejoining the fight. Han Sung advances toward the monsters, calmly reloading his machine gun. After decades of war, the endless waves of creatures have been reduced to the few remaining before them. As the monster attacks again, sweeping its tentacles across the battlefield, Han Sung moves through the strikes while firing with precision. Victory finally seems within reach. He prepares to attack again, but a golden magic circle suddenly forms between him and the monster. He pauses, caught off guard, unsure what he is seeing. A faint golden light begins to shimmer around his body. In the next moment, he vanishes. The soldier behind him notices the sudden change and turns, confused, calling out to him. The scene shifts. Golden chains emerge, accompanied by a voice calling him to answer a summons. The chains bind his neck, hands, and feet, suspending him above a glowing magic circle. Before him stand several robed priests, speaking in hushed amazement at the success of their ritual and the arrival of a hero from another world. Han Sung looks at the restraints around him, trying to understand what has happened and where he is. An old man steps forward, lowering his hood and welcoming him to an empire from another world. He acknowledges the suddenness of the situation and asks Han Sung to defeat a being referred to as the Demon Lord and save their world. Hearing this, Han Sung is left trying to process the unfamiliar request. Han Sung reacts with anger, demanding to know where he is and who the people before him are, insisting he has no time to be there and must return to Korea. Before he can finish, the old man cuts him off and silences him. Raising his hand, the old man activates a spell. Golden light gathers and strikes Han Sung, binding him. Pain surges through his body, forcing a cry out of him. The old man explains that the magic will not harm him if he cooperates. As the effect fades, Han Sung struggles to recover, coughing and steadying himself, frustrated by the situation. The old man then takes a sword from a nearby priest and calmly asks him to defeat the Demon Lord and save the Empire. He throws the sword in front of Han Sung and adds that, if he succeeds, there may be a way to return him to his original world. With a faint, calculating smile, he asks whether Han Sung will accept. Surrounded and restrained, Han Sung realizes he has no real choice and agrees. From that point on, he spends years in the Empire. He explains how he was summoned to another world and forced into the role of a hero. He is sent on constant missions, fighting without rest, cutting down enemies, and fulfilling the Empire's demands. Years pass, 3, then 5, then 10, as he devotes his youth to defeating the Demon Lord Baylor. Throughout that time, he holds on to the expectation that he will eventually be allowed to return home. The scene shifts to a corridor within a medieval structure. The same old man stands holding a cup, assigning Han Sung another mission. Now dressed as a knight, Han Sung questions him, reminding him of the earlier promise. The old man responds calmly that saving the Empire did not end with the Demon Lord. He explains that opposition forces must also be eliminated to secure unification and prevent further uprisings. A poster on the wall identifies the next target, Bardel of the Teutonian Night Kingdom, labeled a dangerous individual. The old man instructs Han Sung to eliminate him, stating that doing so will earn his freedom. At the same time, he subtly reactivates the binding spell, reinforcing control. Han Sung, aware of his lack of choice, accepts internally, though with growing anger and resentment. The scene shifts again to the Teutonian Night Kingdom. On top of a castle wall, Han Sung engages Bardel in a sword fight. The battle ends when Han Sung drives his blade into Bardel's stomach. Wounded, Bardel acknowledges Han Sung's strength and questions his actions. Han Sung lowers his gaze and admits he had no choice. Bardel, recognizing him as the summoned hero, tells him not to apologize. With his final words, he warns that Han Sung himself will eventually be discarded as well. After Bardel collapses, Han Sung looks at the body and believes everything is finally over, expecting to return home. Unnoticed by him, a white-haired knight in armor approaches from behind. In the next moment, the knight strikes, driving his sword through Han Sung's back and piercing his heart. The attacker reveals himself as Count Brandenburg, praising Han Sung for his service and comparing him to a well-used hunting dog. He acknowledges Han Sung's contribution as both a grand general and holy knight of the empire. Realizing the truth, Han Sung understands that the promise to return him home was false. As Brandenburg withdraws his blade, he dismisses the need to keep someone like him alive, stating that a hunting dog only becomes dangerous once it starts to bite. Han Sung collapses to the ground as blood spreads beneath him. Lying there, he reflects on the betrayal. Though he expected resistance, the outcome feels deeply bitter. He resolves not to forget the humiliation. As his life fades, a blue light begins to glow from the wound in his chest. His final thoughts turn into a vow, directed at the empire that deceived him, as everything around him fades into darkness. The scene shifts. That night, as one life ends, another begins. A black-haired, blue-eyed baby wrapped in cloth slowly opens his eyes. A midwife announces the birth with excitement. On the bed, a blonde woman holds the child close, gently acknowledging herself as his mother. From the baby's perspective, Han Sung looks at the woman and the black-haired man standing beside her. He feels a sense of recognition. The man is none other than the continent's most powerful necromancer and dark mage, the Duke of Saxon. This place, he realizes, is Necropolis, the Empire's center of dark magic, home to the Black Magic Tower. He understands what has happened. The stone of reincarnation he once hid has worked, granting him a second life. Though his rebirth was left to chance, he has been born as the eldest son of one of the Empire's greatest noble houses. With time, once he learns necromancy, he plans to take revenge on the Empire that betrayed him. The Duke, however, grows concerned when he notices the child is not crying. The midwife checks and confirms the baby is breathing normally, though she finds the situation unusual. The Duchess, worried, asks for a more careful examination. Han Sung, now aware of his state, finds the concern unnecessary and is irritated by the expectation that he should cry. The midwife reassures the Duke, but decides to stimulate a reaction by striking the baby lightly. The sudden action frustrates him further, though he cannot respond. The Duke remarks on the child's stubbornness, and the Duchess lightly agrees before asking to hold him herself. Now in his mother's arms, Han Sung braces for another strike, but instead of pain, he feels a gentle touch. The warmth of her hand brings an unfamiliar sensation. Memories of his past life, filled with battle and hardship, contrast sharply with this moment. He realizes how long it has been since he felt any form of comfort or care. Overwhelmed, tears begin to form. For the first time, he cries. The sudden change alarms both parents, who rush closer in concern, while the midwife reacts in surprise. Time passes. 8 years later, the Duke and Duchess sit together, reflecting on how quickly the years have gone by since Dale's birth. They speak about their son, noting his deep interest in books and learning from an early age. The Duke observes that Dale seems particularly drawn to magic. The Duchess reminds him of the promise he made, not to pass necromancy onto their son. The Duke reassures her, agreeing without hesitation, and shifts the conversation toward preparing a gift for Dale's upcoming birthday. At that moment, a hurried knock interrupts them. A maid rushes in, reporting something urgent in the study involving Dale. Alarmed, both parents immediately run to the study and push the door open, calling out to him. Inside, Dale turns toward them. They see him surrounded by a glowing blue magic circle. The Duchess rushes forward, checking him anxiously and asking if he is hurt. Dale assures her that he is fine. Meanwhile, the Duke dispels the magic circle and senses the mana lingering in the air. He realizes that, at only 8 years old, Dale has already begun to release mana. Caught off guard, Dale quietly reacts, knowing this development will not go unnoticed. The Duke steps in front of him and questions him directly, asking if he was the one who released the mana. Facing his father, Dale understands the situation. He realizes he has revealed his abilities far earlier than expected and recognizes that he has made a mistake. Dale hesitates, bringing his hands together as he tries to respond. He knows that delaying or answering poorly might raise suspicion about him. Before he can explain, the Duke smiles and pats his head, interpreting the situation on his own. He praises him lightly, but remarks that it is unfortunate he cannot teach him necromancy. Hearing this, Dale is caught off guard, realizing that his path to revenge may not be as straightforward as he thought. The Duchess interrupts the moment, telling him to return to his room while the servants handle the aftermath. Dale obeys and leaves. As he runs off, the Duke calls out to his wife and mentions that he has already decided on a gift for Dale. Soon after, the scene shifts to a grand banquet hall for Dale's birthday. Nobles from across the domain gather, talking among themselves and celebrating. Conversations revolve around the scale of the event and anticipation for Dale's appearance. From his second floor, Dale observes the crowd. He notes the delay in the proceedings and feels uncomfortable with the attention. Having once lived as someone treated as expendable, being celebrated as a young noble still feels unfamiliar. At the same time, he worries about losing control of his mana again, recalling how even memories of his past caused it to surge. He considers how to persuade his father to allow him to learn necromancy, but doubts any direct request would succeed. The Duchess enters the room in formal attire, accompanied by a robed woman. She greets Dale warmly and wishes him a happy birthday. When he asks about the woman behind her, she introduces her as Sage Sephia, an elder of the Blue Magic Tower and a master of water attribute magic, who will serve as his teacher. Dale quickly understands the implication. Instead of dark magic, he is being guided toward water magic, focused on control and defense. It is clear his mother intends to keep him away from necromancy. Sephia then asks to speak with him privately, and Dale agrees. The setting shifts to a quiet mountain path. Sephia explains that she will only teach him water attribute magic. She asks if he feels disappointed, already aware that he likely wished to learn his father's magic. When Dale questions how she knows, she explains the circumstances of his parents' marriage. The Duke had promised not to pass on necromancy, a vow made publicly and tied to his mother's fears of his reputation. Despite that, Sephia suggests she may try to persuade the Duchess in time. She asks whether Dale is willing to follow her guidance. Dale questions her stance, noting that as an elf she should oppose necromancy. Sephia responds with a different perspective, comparing it to divine magic used by priests, implying that both involve similar principles. Her answer surprises him and changes his impression of her. She signals the start of training. Since Dale has already formed a fragment of a mana circle, she sets the goal of completing it. Following her instructions, he places his hand over his heart and begins to concentrate. He recalls the theory: mana must be regulated through a circle formed within the heart, acting as a structure to control its flow. As he gathers the fragments and stabilizes them, mana begins to circulate properly. A blue light forms within him as the circle takes shape. Sephia begins to explain that mastering this process usually takes time, but before she can finish, Dale informs her that he has already completed it. She is visibly surprised, realizing the speed at which he formed a complete circle far exceeds normal expectations. Dale then gathers mana into his hands, shaping it outward. At her request, he attempts to release it through the circle. While focusing, he reflects on the difference between his past and present. In his previous life, he relied on artificial methods to use magic, but now his body naturally accepts and channels mana. This opens the possibility of mastering multiple forms of magic. Concentrating further, he condenses the mana into a defined form, creating a shard of ice at his fingertips. Sephia observes closely, noting the unusual stability and precision of the spell. Normally, such constructs collapse during formation, but his remains intact. Dale releases the ice projectile toward a nearby tree. Upon impact, it pierces cleanly and shatters the trunk, causing the entire tree to split and fall. Sephia is left stunned by the result, recognizing that this level of control and power is far beyond what an 8-year-old should be capable of. She walks over to the tree and examines it, saying she expected nothing more than basic mana manipulation. Instead, the ice element had been perfectly integrated during the release. It was simple magic in theory, but the way he absorbed the surrounding chill so precisely was unbelievable. Dale walks over and asks if he did something wrong. She smiles as she looks at him and says the complexity of the magic formula is far beyond what any child should be capable of. It involves rotation, acceleration, and compression. The spell incorporates the 3 formulas known as the golden ratio of military magic. For him to project and cast something like that is completely absurd. Dale asks if something's wrong. She tells him it's nothing, but she now understands why his father might find this troubling. Later, Alan asks her why she can't teach him. If Dale reached the first circle in just a few minutes, then she should be able to guide him further. She explains that the moment he reached it, he immediately cast a perfect lethal spell. Alan is visibly surprised. She says it's hard to believe an 8-year-old could do something like that. The spell used a military-grade magic formula with a flawless golden ratio. Alan asks if this is because she belongs to the Blue Magic Tower, which follows a path of nonviolence. She says that's not the issue. If anything, she feels a strong responsibility to guide him properly. Alan presses her. Then what's the real reason? She explains it's because of the noir magic of the Lord Noir, the Dark Magic Tower. Alan is shocked. She continues, saying Dale already possesses the kind of magic he wants to learn. She's heard about Alan's past and understands the promise he made to Elena, but that doesn't give him the right to decide his child's future, especially when that child has this level of talent. Outside, Dale tries to eavesdrop but can't hear anything. He sits there, thinking they must be talking about him. He didn't expect his first spell to show that much power, and it clearly surprised her. He realizes he'll need to be more careful with control moving forward. He sighs until he hears someone call his name. He instantly brightens, calling out to his Uncle Helmet. Helmet asks what he's doing there, and Dale asks where he's been. Helmet explains he's been away, fulfilling his duty, protecting the family and hunting dangerous monsters. Dale guesses he must have been in a dungeon. In this world, the appearance of dungeons and monster overflows is a serious threat to every territory. Ever since the time of the Demon King, monsters invading civilian areas have caused constant destruction. That's why knights are primarily tasked with clearing unexplored dungeons and stopping monster outbreaks. Their duchy faces this problem far more severely than others. And the reason is him. After Dale's past life defeated the Demon King, the Duke was ordered to turn that land into imperial territory by subduing the monsters that remained. Dale tells Helmet to stay safe. Helmet looks confused, asking what he means, just as Alan walks in, noting that Helmet seems to be in good health. Helmet greets him, and Alan thanks him for his efforts in the recent dungeon raid. Elena arrives as well, and Dale wonders why she's there. She smiles, saying she heard he reached the first circle and that she's proud of him. Alan congratulates him too, asking if there's anything he wants to say. Dale thinks for a moment. If he asks to learn necromancy now, it might come off as suspicious. So instead, he says he wants a little sister. Both his parents blush. They say they'll try their best, and Dale says he's looking forward to it. Helmet and the others struggle to hold back their laughter, while the rest openly laugh. That night, Dale thinks about how exhausting it is to act like a child at this age, especially after using magic. As soon as he falls asleep, he has a nightmare. Brandenburg appears, saying it's good to see him again. He mocks him, asking if he's already grown soft, living in a loving home. And surely, he's not still thinking about revenge, because the Empire will find him. They'll keep searching, and they'll erase him completely. Dale wakes up in a cold sweat, his mana violently surging. It feels like his heart is about to burst. This is the mana rampage he's heard about. He stumbles out of his room, clutching his chest, saying the Empire will never let him go. He steps outside, hoping the fresh air will help, but it only gets worse. Then Cephia appears. She looks at him and says he seems to be in serious trouble. She releases a faint aura from her hand, saying he's incredibly talented, but she can't shake the feeling that there's something dangerous about him. She places her palm against his chest and explains that once malice takes over a child's magic, it becomes irreversible. Then she begins correcting the flow of his mana, calming the rampage. Dale looks down, realizing it's actually gone. She calls out to him and explains that magic is a reflection of the heart. That's why every mage has a unique style, even when using the same spells. His magic, she says, is especially dangerous because it's built around taking lives. And that's exactly why she believes it's fortunate that she's the one teaching him. She hands him a necromancy tome and says maybe it's fate that she'll be guiding him from now on. Then she tells him happy birthday. Without hesitation, he hugs her. She laughs, calling him needy. Sometime later, out on the northern plains, Dale looks around and asks if they're hunting rabbits. Cephia confirms it and tells him to think back to when he used to hunt with his father. He nods. He prepares his magic. The rabbit senses something, but it's already too late. Dale pulls back his fist and drives it forward, exploding the rabbit in a single strike. Cephia observes that even after taking a life, his hands don't hesitate. She explains that even when two mages use the same spell, the result can vary endlessly. She asks if he knows why. He admits he doesn't. She tells him it's because magic reflects the mind. It materializes what's inside you through mana particles. In the end, magic reveals your inner world. He asks if that's a bad thing. She explains that terms like firewall are just tools, ways to stabilize imagination. Even magic towers operate the same way. The red magic tower values order through strength, while the blue tower values harmony. Each tower's philosophy shapes the form of its magic. There are others too, black, white, and green towers. She pauses, saying it might be a bit early for him to fully understand all of that. Now, after killing another rabbit, this time leaving the body intact, she begins teaching him necromancy. The most basic form is raising a zombie. It involves animating a corpse using mana threads. The head, spine, and knees must be connected until the body can stand. He follows her instructions. She praises him and asks if he's ready for the next step. He says yes. Dale begins casting frozen armor. His eyes shift as he slams his hand to the ground, sending an ice beam into the rabbit and covering it in spiked armor. Cephia notes that his execution is unusual, though the structure is correct. Now they can test its defense. She launches an attack. Dale watches nervously as it hits, but it only chips the armor. The rabbit remains standing. Dale realizes it actually blocked her attack. She praises him again, then notices he wants to ask something. He says he wants her to teach him how to better use water magic as well. She smiles and refuses. He asks why. She explains that what he used today is only the most basic form of water magic. As magic develops, it requires deeper understanding and insight. Most beginners struggle to master even one type. Handling two at once, becoming a dual mage, is extremely rare. At his age, it's practically impossible. From her perspective, his request is overly ambitious. Dale pushes back. Didn't he just use necromancy and ice? He asks if everything he's shown still isn't enough. She pauses, realizing she may have misjudged him slightly, and decides to end the lesson for the day. That night, in the study, Dale insists there's nothing he can't figure out on his own. He'll prove himself, so much that she'll have no choice but to teach him. The next day, Cephia keeps calling his name until he snaps out of it. She asks if he's okay. He looks exhausted. He admits he stayed up all night preparing something. She tells him not to overdo it. He brushes it off. Then he raises his hand to cast necromancy again. The rabbit is still there, armor intact. Cephia looks at it and realizes he's already mastered it completely. He then detonates the armor. Cracks spread across it before it bursts outward. Cephia immediately recognizes it, saying that's ice explosion. She looks surprised and then asks if that's all. As mana begins leaking from the rabbit's mouth, Dale controls it, forming a sphere at its stomach. Then it detonates again, this time with a massive explosion that sends shards of ice flying everywhere. Cephia quickly raises a barrier, once again caught off guard by him. She looks over at Dale. Dale explains that corpse explosion and ice explosion are similar in nature, so he combined them into one. With this, he figures he should qualify as a dual mage. She stares at the aftermath, stunned. She's never seen anything like it. He merged the ice explosion from frozen armor with corpse explosion, creating a wide area attack. And it didn't stop there. The ice and bone fragments were launched like blades. It's the kind of magic built purely for killing. The kind used by someone who spent their entire life on the battlefield. She wonders what kind of mind could produce something like this. Dale suddenly turns and calls out to his Uncle Helmet. Helmet waves at them. Dale asks if he just got back from another dungeon raid. Helmet says they subdued a small group of monsters this time, but the Black Cavalry still had to put in work. The Black Cavalry, elite knights wielding aura-infused lances, are the unmatched cavalry force of their duchy, and their captain, Helmet, is one of the 7 sword masters on the continent. Dale reminds him of their promise to teach him swordsmanship, saying learning from someone like him is a perfect opportunity. Helmet laughs, saying of course he hasn't forgotten. Dale waves him off, saying he'll see him later. Helmet tells him not to stay out too long, it's getting cold. Cephia agrees, saying it's time to head back. That night, Alan asks Cephia to explain what she meant earlier. She confirms it exactly. Dale has already mastered his first circle in both necromancy and water magic. Alan points out that she was only supposed to teach him water magic. She admits she knows, but she chose to teach him what he truly wanted to learn. He made it clear he wanted more than just water magic. She apologizes if she overstepped. Elena asks her to continue teaching him water magic regardless. Cephia agrees and says she'll continue guiding him. As she leaves, she pauses and apologizes again for breaking their promise. Then she adds that their child is extraordinary. Becoming a dual mage at just 8 years old is unbelievable, though he can be frightening at times. Given who his parents are, it makes sense. After she leaves, Alan hesitates before telling Elena that he wants to teach Dale necromancy himself. He wants to give him the strength needed to carry the responsibilities of a lord. He apologizes. He explains that necromancy is still feared. People call it the magic of death. That's why Elena has always wanted to keep Dale away from it. But now, he wants to raise him into someone strong enough to ignore public perception. He asks if she's okay with that. She hugs him. He promises he'll train their son to become the strongest. And so, Dale's first day of special necromancy training begins. His father immediately tells him he's disappointed. He's been raising the dead without even understanding what he's controlling. Dale says that's all he was taught. They're now in a magic workshop beneath the castle. After seeing Dale's basic necromancy, Alan clicked his tongue and brought him here. He tells Dale that under his guidance, he shouldn't even think about using such crude spells. They'll start with the fundamentals, memorizing the bone and muscle structures of all living beings. Dale agrees. The books his father gives him are the kind only professional doctors would read in his old world. But eventually, he's allowed to move on to practical magic. Alan says the real lesson begins now. They walk up to a table. Dale looks down. It's a goblin corpse. He can't help but think, why does it look like that, though? Alan notices his confusion. He explains that an untrained warlock can only move a swordmaster's corpse like a simple zombie. But a skilled one can turn an ordinary soldier into a death knight. The corpse in front of him is just a basic undead. Alan asks how he plans to control it. Dale reaches out and releases his mana. He explains that unlike a rabbit, which is small and simple, a goblin is much harder to control. It's bipedal, with a more complex structure requiring many more mana threads. Suddenly, one of his mana rings breaks, and he loses control. He compares it to trying to operate an extremely complicated puppet. He realizes his mistake. He used post-mortem rigidity to increase durability, but that stiffened the joints too much. Now it can't move properly. He wonders what to do. Alan places a hand on his shoulder. He tells him the idea wasn't wrong. Reinforcing the body by accelerating post-mortem rigidity can increase durability. But the trade-off is reduced mobility. That's the limitation Dale now has to overcome. He tells Dale to watch closely, then begins channeling his mana. It wraps around the goblin's body, entering through its rib cage. His father explains that ribs are meant to protect vital organs, but since the body is dead, that function is no longer necessary. He redirects the mana, forcing it to shoot outward through the arm. Alan tells him to understand the structure of his target and reshape it to fit his purpose. Dale is stunned. He never even considered something like this. His father tells him this is the foundation of black magic. Dale then says there's something else he wants to learn, the mindset of the black magic tower. His father smiles and asks if he wants to learn the truth. The truth, he says, exists within death. To reach it, one must understand the weight of life. Dale recalls his past life. Someone begging for mercy, groveling at his feet, and even then he raised his sword and cut their head off. He snaps out of it. His father asks if he's okay, saying he doesn't look well. Dale says he's fine, repeating it to himself. As his training continues day after day, news spreads across the empire that he's being taught dark magic. Breaking the vow causes a massive uproar, and the one responsible, Dale, becomes the center of attention. All eyes are now on him. A few weeks later, Dale is sparring with Helmet. He blocks an incoming strike, and to Helmet's surprise, Dale starts pushing him back. Helmet creates distance, raises his sword, and swings down. Dale follows the motion and counters, knocking the sword right out of Helmet's hand. Helmet stares in disbelief as it hits the ground. He admits it wasn't bad. Dale points out that someone like him wouldn't drop his weapon unless it was intentional. Helmet denies it. He says that if those techniques were used in a real fight, a normal person would have died instantly. Dale's swordsmanship is impressive, almost too good for a mage. After all, mages usually rely on guards for protection. There's no real need for him to train this hard. Dale disagrees. It wouldn't look right for the Duke's son to depend only on protection and defensive magic. And besides, how could he pass up the chance to learn directly from one of the continent's 7 sword masters? Helmet laughs, calling it a great answer. If he had a son like him, he'd have no regrets. Dale admits he didn't expect that kind of praise. Then his mother arrives. She says they both look like they're in high spirits. Dale asks what she's doing there. She says she came to see how hard he's been working and to share some news. Dale asks what it is. She reminds him about the birthday wish he made. At first, he doesn't remember, then it clicks. He asks for a little sister. She tells him he'll need to take good care of his sibling. Dale agrees, though they don't know yet if it'll be a boy or a girl. 10 months later, the baby is born. Dale can't believe it actually happened, and she's incredibly cute. Elena asks if he wants to hold her. He hesitates, asking if it's okay. She reassures him it's not difficult. Alan adds that he thought the same at first, but it's easier than it looks. He asks what Dale thinks. Elena laughs, saying the baby cries every time she holds her, but never when Dale does. She seems completely at ease with him. Dale smiles. Alan asks how it feels. Dale says she's light as a feather, but at the same time, she feels incredibly heavy. Alan nods. That's the weight of life, and it's something he should never forget. Elena claps, saying it's time for his lesson. Cephia is waiting. Cephia tells him today's lesson is real combat. Dale asks if he can go all out. She tells him not to hold back. He agrees and begins channeling his mana. She wants to see how much he's improved. He fires 2 ice bolts straight at her. She says the first one is too slow and easily blocks the second, even catching her hand. She asks why he's holding back. He's surprised. She throws it back at him, telling him to put up a barrier quickly. He raises his arm, forming ice armor just in time to block it. He admits that without it, he would have been seriously hurt. She's impressed he formed it that quickly. The armor starts to crack and chip. She tells him to attack again. Dale slams his hand onto the ground, creating an ice wall in front of them, almost like something out of Full Metal Alchemist. She questions why he'd use a defensive spell in the middle of combat. Yes, he increased its density by reinforcing the mana structure, but why now? She wonders if he's trying to catch his breath after her last attack. She suddenly senses something. Dale is about to cast Frost Explosion using a fragmentation formula. He detonates it, calling it a grenade, and it launches straight toward her. After the attack, Dale says it worked. The incantation compressed the already dense ice wall even further, and since the ice molecules have been strengthened beforehand, the result was an explosive release. It turned into a grenade, one that would be hard for even his master to avoid. He looks over and sees her body riddled with holes, and immediately starts panicking. Then she appears behind him, casually asking if he called for her. He lets out a breath of relief, realizing she just startled him. She tells him that was an impressive technique. She never expected a mere first circle mage to be capable of wounding a magic tower elder. Dale quickly says he didn't mean to hurt her. She tells him she knows, and she's grateful for it. He asks why. She explains that it means he trusted her enough to use his full strength. As his master, that makes her prouder than words can express. He asks if she really means that. She says of course, he's an excellent student. Then she asks how he even came up with that formula. He tells her it's all thanks to what she taught him. She smiles. Later, she looks concerned as Alan asks about the wound on her cheek. She explains she was careless during training, and that Dale's formula was exceptionally sharp. Alan says he's always indebted to her. She brushes it off, saying teaching someone as talented as Dale is a joy. Then Alan asks if he can make one more request. She tells him to go ahead. He explains they've received reports that a group of orcs has crossed the mountain range into their territory. Normally, a small cavalry unit could handle it, but he intends to send Dale along. She's immediately concerned, saying he's not ready yet. Alan explains Dale won't be on the front lines, but defending their land is the duty of their house. As the Duke's heir, he needs to understand that responsibility. No matter how much he loves him, Dale isn't exempt. She asks what he wants her to do. He says he'll be entrusting Dale with one of their artifacts, and wants her to guide him until he can control its power. Alan explains artifacts to Dale. They are objects filled with immense power and will, and they require a price, either mana or life, to use. The stronger the artifact, the more dangerous and unstable it becomes. Sometimes, they're fatal. Their family, however, has mastered how to handle them. As they walk to the artifact vault, Alan reminds him that as the Duke's heir, he must prepare for the upcoming battle. Dale pretends to be surprised, but internally, he's excited. Alan says he'll be joining the force to exterminate the orcs. But before that, he must learn to control the darkness their family wields. When the vault opens, Dale is genuinely shocked. Alan explains that these are relics from the Demon King's era, artifacts their family has managed ever since conquering his domain. They far surpass ordinary artifacts. Dale says he can feel the overwhelming mana radiating from them. Alan warns him, they're all incredibly dangerous. Until he learns control, he shouldn't touch anything recklessly. But when Alan looks over, Dale is gone. Moments earlier, Dale had wandered off, searching for an artifact that suited him. One of them, the shield, begins speaking to him. It says it knows he seeks revenge. It can feel his hatred, and it's not the only one. Multiple artifacts begin calling out to him. They resonate with the resentment inside him. But to Dale, it's not enough. He needs something stronger. Then he notices a cloak. He wonders when it appeared and recognizes it immediately. A shadow cloak. During the hero's era, the Duke of the Demon King's army used this top-tier artifact. It could give physical form to shadows, making its wielder nearly impossible to fight. Dale says he can't wait to try it. He equips it instantly. Alan shouts for him. Cephia does too, but the shadows engulf him. Everything turns dark. A black puddle spreads beneath his feet. A voice echoes. It's hungry. Dale realizes what this means. This isn't an ordinary shadow. The previous wielder could command storms of darkness, shadows that moved like living beings. To control it, he has to make it submit. The shadow lunges toward him. He knew it wouldn't be as simple as talking. But then, something unexpected happens. Outside, Alan and Cepheus stare at a swirling orb of darkness. Cepheus says it's been a while, and asks if they should be worried. Alan says if this continues, Dale will lose his sanity and be consumed. She asks what they should do. He says they'll have to force him out. But just as he moves, a blinding light erupts. Dale steps out of the orb. They both call out to him. He says he's right here. Cepheus rushes over, asking if he's okay. He says he is. Alan, however, is stunned. He can't understand how a child endured something like that, and came out completely unharmed. Dale tells his father he has a question. His father tells him to go ahead. Dale asks if he can try out the other artifacts too. Both Alan and Cepheus look confused, but Alan agrees. Dale thanks him, and just like that, he spends the entire day and night exploring the vault. Just feeling Helmet's aura is intimidating. Helmet tells him not to worry. He'll only use basic swordsmanship, no aura. Dale immediately gets annoyed, saying that means he's holding back. A knight should fight sincerely. That's their creed. But Dale's real goal isn't the duel itself. He wants to test the shadow cloak. The strength of the weapons he can form from his shadow creatures will determine the artifact's true value. And this fight is the perfect test. Dale launches the first move, Shadow Blade Rush. Helmet pulls back his sword and cuts straight through the attack in a single swing. Dale is impressed that he broke through it with pure strength. Helmet laughs, saying it's good, and then charges forward. He swings at Dale. Dale melts into the shadows, dodging the attack, and counters. Spikes erupt from the ground where Helmet stood. Helmet calls it fascinating and swings again, this time aiming for Dale's face. Dale blocks with his shadow, but it starts to crack under the pressure. He pushes back, sliding across the ground, but manages to hold. Helmet is impressed. He says that strike carried enough force to break a normal sword clean in half. That's the difference between a standard weapon and a top-tier artifact. Then Helmet says he wants 10 more exchanges. They continue the duel. The knights watching are stunned. No one has ever lasted more than 2 exchanges against their captain. A few days later, on the day of deployment, Elena says she's going to talk to Alan again. No matter how she looks at it, she can't accept sending Dale somewhere so dangerous. Dale reassures her Alan and Helmet will both be there. She still worries that something could go wrong. Dale tells her he needs to become stronger. One day, he'll have to carry the weight of the dukedom. And when that time comes, he'll need the strength to protect her, his father, and his little sister, Liz. That's why he needs this experience now. He wants to be strong enough to protect them. Elena smiles and tells him to go. He promises he'll be back soon. He mounts his horse and heads to meet the others. Helmet arrives as well, telling Alan they're ready. Alan turns to Dale and tells him to give the order to march. One day, the Black Cavalry will be his to command. They are his knights. Dale feels the excitement. This will be his first battle as their leader. This time, it will be different. He raises his voice, telling the men that their moment has come. They are the proud swords of Saxon. They raise their lances and respond as one. Then they charge forward. They have 250 cavalry. An elite ranger unit is stationed in the White Mountains. The Winter Wardens will also join. Their target 1,000 orcs. The orcs have crossed the mountains, moving upstream along the Saxon River to escape the cold and starvation. Eventually, they'll head downstream. So the plan is to strike first, cross the lower river, and ambush them. But crossing a river that deep isn't simple. As the soldiers hesitate, Cepheus steps forward. She tells them to move aside. She'll handle it. Dale lights up, surprised she came all this way to help. Despite her philosophy of harmony and nonviolence, she places her hands on the ground and creates a massive bridge of ice. The army crosses. She tells them to go and wishes them victory. Alan thanks her. Dale tells her he's heading out too. As he rides past, she smiles softly. It's strange how much a student can make their master worry. Sometime later, at the orc camp, the hidden rangers begin their ambush. The rangers unleash a volley of flaming arrows, raining down on the orc camp. Many are killed instantly, while others tank the hits and go berserk. Helmet gives the order. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Cavalry battalions form a wedge and charge. As they advance, Helmet asks Dale what he thinks. Dale analyzes it instantly. Each horse's hooves strike the ground twice per second, putting them at roughly 40 kilometers per hour. Combined with the weight of armored riders and long lances locked in place, the impact force is overwhelming. With aura enhancing the formation, even orcs won't be able to stop it. This will be completely one-sided. Alan confirms, This is the true strength of their cavalry. But Helmet warns them not to relax. This is just the beginning. The orcs adapt quickly, raising tower shields and spears, resisting the charge. Helmet notes that while the ambush worked, it wasn't enough to wipe them out. He orders a retreat to regroup and finish them with rotating charges. A signal flare fires. The cavalry pulls back immediately. The orcs hesitate, confused. Then they spot a retreating knight. They throw their spears. One hits, killing the horse instantly. Dale sees it happen. Alan remarks that it's unfortunate. One knight is already down. Dale can't accept that. Why are they already riding him off? He asks why they're just standing there, watching one of their own die. Helmet looks to Alan. Dale doesn't wait for an answer. If the knight falls completely, it'll be too late. At this distance, he needs a single precise shot, one powerful enough to pierce an orc's thick hide. So he starts modifying the formula. He adds a high-precision projectile structure, then a ballistic trajectory calculation for stability. That should be enough. He calls it the Barrett M98B Lapua Magnum formula. He points his finger like a gun. Just as the orc moves in for the kill, Dale fires. The orc's head is blown clean off. Helmet is stunned. That shot came from a massive distance, with insane accuracy. Alan is just as shocked. Dale, however, is already moving. Helmet asks where he's going. Alan tells him to let him go. At his age, he just created an original magic formula with that level of destructive power. That means his inner world is already nearing completion. Dale focuses on the battlefield. The orcs are regrouping, and now there are two problems. First, the fallen knight has shaken morale. Second, his original formula is too long for real combat. He needs something faster, simpler. He shortens it. Ice 98 Magnum. Still too long. He settles on one name. Ice Bullet. The soldier looks at him in shock. Dale fires instantly. The orc's head explodes. The soldier asks why he would save someone like him. Dale dismounts and tells him not to worry. House Saxon doesn't abandon loyal swords. Two more orcs rush in. Dale extends his hand. Shadow blade shoots out. One is cut down instantly. He commands it to consume. The other watches in horror as his ally is devoured, reduced to bones before his head is sliced off. It rolls across the ground, the body already stripped clean. Dale casually asks why it's still standing, and fires another ice bullet, splattering himself in orc blood. The soldier is still shaken, saying his legs won't move. Dale realizes what he has to do. He lifts him, Princess carries him, and brings him back to Helmet, saying he'll handle the rest. Helmet rallies the troops. Charge forward, for their house and for the young master's bravery. Back at camp, Alan tells Dale the orcs have been completely subdued. But he has a question. Why did he charge into enemy lines alone? That was reckless. Dale doesn't understand why he's being scolded. So he asked his father directly, why did he rush in? Because Alan himself said these knights are his future to lead. He simply acted in accordance with that responsibility. Alan says that reasoning is weak. Dale is confused. His father is known for valuing his knights, so why act like this? He asks why Alan stood by while one of them was about to die. Alan explains, the Northern Territories constantly face monster hordes. Knights on the front lines don't fight expecting to be saved. Dale argues that he still wanted to save a loyal knight. Alan counters, by doing so, he may have planted the idea that someone will always come to rescue them. And if that mindset spreads, how many knights will actually survive? Then Alan asks how many knights with that mindset would actually survive. The knights of their territory sharpen their blades endlessly to face the threats around them. Only when they reach their absolute limit will he step in himself. And that is the noble duty their house must carry. Dale admits he's right. It's a logical argument he can't refute. He already knew this in his previous life. Yet somehow he forgot. His father places a hand on his shoulder and tells him that the way he acted on his own will was impressive, and that he should never lose that spirit. Dale nods. He understands. As Alan opens the tent, he tells him it's time to head back home. The story of Dale charging into a horde of orcs to save a single knight spreads across the empire. It's mostly true, with just a bit of exaggeration, but it spreads like wildfire. Even though Dale finds it embarrassing, it breathes new life into the duchy. A few days later, at the training grounds, all the knights kneel as they greet him. Dale tells them that this isn't necessary. Helmet tells him to stand tall, to carry himself with pride. Then he turns to his men and tells them that for the future of the young master, they must become even stronger. They erupt into cheers. Dale can't help but think they're a bit too passionate. A maid approaches and informs him that guests from House Herdert have arrived. We learn her name is Eve. Dale thanks her. Helmet asks if he's ready, and Dale says it looks like they're about to meet a special guest. House Herdert is led by its patriarch, Bedell. Dale remembers him. In his past life, he killed him, and the house fell with him. He notices his helmet looks slightly uncomfortable, likely recalling the divine sword, the man who led him into knighthood. This might get awkward. They enter. Alan greets him, asking if he was training. Dale says yes. Then the butler announces the guests. A woman and her daughter walk in. Dale notes how impressive it is that she arrived without attendants. She introduces herself as Vanessa and greets the Duke. Alan welcomes her. She then introduces her daughter, Charlotte. Charlotte looks visibly irritated. Dale immediately wonders what her problem is. She questions her mother, asking why she's bowing her head to them. Vanessa tries to stop her, but Alan intervenes, saying they've endured a lot to get this far. He asks Dale to escort Charlotte around the castle. Dale agrees and reaches out his hand. Charlotte recoils instantly and slaps it away. She tells him not to touch her. Dale is caught off guard. Even his parents are surprised. She calls them shameless imperial nobles. Vanessa panics, telling her to apologize. Instead, Charlotte storms off. Dale calls after her, but she slams the door. Vanessa apologizes for her daughter's behavior, saying she's not usually like this. But recent events have made her unstable. Elena asks what happened. Vanessa explains. Count Brandenburg has been assigned as the new overseer of their territory. The same man who killed Hansung. He's known as the Empire's Holy Knight. Infamous and feared, they call him the Pig King. To produce a powerful heir, he seeks out skilled swordswomen, regardless of age. Even Charlotte. Vanessa barely managed to escape before he could touch her, but the trauma remains. As a fallen noble, she has no power to protect her daughter. So she begs them, please take Charlotte in as a maid, so that man will never be able to reach her. Meanwhile, Dale catches up to Charlotte. She's wiping away her tears. He asks if she even knows where she's going. She says she doesn't care. He notices they've ended up at the training grounds. She suddenly asks if his hand is okay. He says it's fine. She seems relieved. Dale realizes that despite her attitude, she's still just a kid. Then she draws her blade. She points it at him and demands a match. She tells him to draw his sword. Dale is confused. She's completely unpredictable. He asks for a reason. She says she's heard the stories about the man who slaughtered 1,000 orcs to save a single knight. Dale realizes she bought into the rumors. She declares that she'll defeat him, the so-called unmatched prodigy. She'll prove she's stronger and protect her house from that man. Dale asks who she means. She answers, Count Brandenburg. Dale freezes for a moment. That name, he could never forget it. The Empire's dog, the man who stabbed him in the back. Now their paths cross again. Dale realizes something. They share the same enemy. She could become a useful ally. But first, she needs a reality check. He walks past her and picks up a training sword. He tells her she's just a child who doesn't understand anything. Then he turns back and tells her, come at him with everything she's got. She says she was already planning to do that, and instantly charges forward. Dale blocks the attack. She keeps pressing, trying to counter, but every thrust is easily deflected. He even looks a little bored. He explains that all he needs to counter her is simple wrist movement. Even though she's using aura, she's channeling it into a rapier that's too large for her frame. Just like a mage builds mana through the circle in their heart, a knight builds aura within their body to push beyond human limits. She really is a knight at her core. She prepares another strike and thrusts again. This time, he actually has to block it properly. She claims that at this level, she has the advantage. She remembers her past. Her father was gone before she was even born. But every night, her mother told her stories about him. She was told she had to protect their house in his place. As the daughter of the divine sword, even after their kingdom fell, even after their house collapsed, her sword never stopped. So why? Why does it keep getting stopped by this boy? Something has to be wrong. Dale deliberately leaves an opening. She takes the bait and lunges. But the moment she strikes, he deflects her blade, keeps pressure on it, and then snaps his wrist, sending her sword flying out of her hands. She stares in disbelief. She's the daughter of the divine sword. So why can't she win? Dale answers calmly. Because she isn't the divine sword. Her pride as his daughter isn't wrong. But as she is now, she can't protect her house from that man. The holy swordsman is 10 times stronger than she is right now. She asks what she's supposed to do. Dale turns and begins walking away. Then he says it. He swears on his family name that he will protect House Herdert. She's stunned. He continues until she becomes strong enough to defeat him herself. He'll be her shield. She asks why. He tells her it's because her sword is worth it. But in return, she has to swear to become a sword for him. For House Saxon, she accepts instantly. She swears her oath. Dale notes that it may sound like a childish promise, but the resolve behind it is strong enough to be called a vow. That night, in his father's office, Alan brings it up. Charlotte has officially joined their house as a maid, and surprisingly, she accepted without hesitation. He asks Dale what happened between them. Dale explains that they made a promise in the name of House Saxon. He swore to protect House Herdert. Alan asks if he invoked their family's name out of pity. Dale says no. Alan then asks what he's gaining from this. Dale explains that the Divine Sword bloodline carries immense talent. They made a new oath together. What he wants is a new Divine Sword, one that will fight for their duchy. Alan is impressed. He says that's good. Dale adds that the last of the Divine Sword's bloodline is now under their roof, and that's a solid blow against Brandenburg. Meanwhile, Brandenburg is furious. He can't believe that arrogant fool made the first move. He's angry they failed to capture a single girl. One of his men reports that the assassin he sent was killed before reaching House Saxon. They suspect Charlotte fought them off herself. Brandenburg calls them useless. He walks over to his sword, recalling the moment he betrayed Hans Sam. He smiles. Those were good times. He picks up the holy sword Durandal and licks it. He mutters about his future bride. He'll make sure she bears the perfect heir to wield the holy sword. He orders his men to contact the Thieves' Guild. Send them into the Duke's territory. Pay whatever it takes. Just bring Charlotte back to him. It's been a week since Charlotte swore her oath. She begins adjusting to life at the estate. Instead of just physical training, she's now also learning maid duties, etiquette, discipline, proper conduct. But she still spars with Dale every day. We see them training again. Helmet asks if they're ready. Dale says yes. Charlotte raises her blade. Helmet nods and tells them to begin. Sparks fly as they clash. Dale goes on the offensive, forcing her into a defensive stance. He unleashes a relentless barrage, but she keeps up, blocking every strike. Helmet watches closely. Is this really a fight between children? They may not be on a knight's level yet, but their speed and killing intent are impressive. Dale suddenly grabs his cloak and throws it forward. Charlotte realizes what he's doing. He's blocking her vision. But before she can react, Helmet steps in and stops the match. He says that was excellent work and that Charlotte did well. She snaps back, telling him to stop with the empty praise. She asks what she's lacking. Helmet answers bluntly. If he doesn't push himself, she might catch up to him sooner than he expects. Later, during magic training, they go over mana circles again. The process is mostly the same. You sense the flow of mana circulating through your heart. Wait until it stabilizes. Then engrave that pattern into your body as a mana ring. The problem? It usually takes decades. Cephia, however, is completely confused. He's already completed his second circle. Dale explains. In this world, a mage's mana circle is measured in RPM, rotations per minute of mana flow. A typical first circle mage reaches around 300 revolutions per minute. Right now, his first circle is spinning at 2,000 revolutions per minute. His second circle is already at 400 revolutions per minute to form a new circle. The minimum requirement is 300 revolutions per minute, which means he's already qualified for the third circle. Since he's reached this point, he decides to run an experiment. He wants to enhance his ice bullet. Y equals VT, he strengthens the molecular bonds to increase mass and hardness, then simulates a large caliber barrel to boost rotation and velocity. He calls it AP Roundy Fires. The projectile spins violently and drills straight through an entire tree. He pauses. Was it always this easy to create something like that? Cephia claps, impressed. She says he always learns incredibly fast. Dale tells her it's thanks to her. She's his master. She smiles. From saving a knight to helping Charlotte, he always uses his strength for the right reasons. His growth may be monstrous, but he isn't. She hugs him tightly, saying she's proud of him. Dale immediately blushes. He says she's way too comfortable with physical contact. This is awkward. Later that day in the courtyard, he's still thinking about it. She probably just sees him as a kid, but he shakes it off. No time for that. Training comes first. He casts Ice Wall, reinforcing it, then prepares another attack, Ice Bullet. But this time, buckshot variation. He fires. Multiple pellets scatter, bouncing inside the ice wall, building pressure until the wall shatters. The fragments ricochet wildly, even back toward him. He quickly deploys a barrier to block it. Next time, he'll try a slug version instead. Charlotte calls out to him. He turns. She says she's been wondering where he's been training. He asks if she's nearby practicing. She nods. She's working on the footwork Helmet taught her. He says she really seems to enjoy swordsmanship. She admits that she does. Then she hesitates. She wants to apologize. She reflects on how rude she was before, corrects herself, and calls him young Master Dale. He laughs, says he didn't expect that, then tells her he'll forgive her. She lights up. He also tells her not to be so formal with him. They start talking casually. She says she likes the weather here. She can train late into the night. and the cool air keeps her refreshed. Dale watches her smile, sees how passionate she is. It makes him a little happy. Elsewhere, Elena watches them from a distance. She says time flies. Their son is already at that age. Alan agrees. They look good together. Elena says they need to keep an eye on them. But she's already decided what she has to do. As a mother, she has to guide her son to follow his feelings. They are completely misunderstanding the situation. Later, at the outskirts of the duchy, Elena is distributing supplies to the slums. Every week, she brings food, essentials, and even helps people find work. This year, Dale and Charlotte have started helping her. Charlotte notices a child crying. She asks what's wrong. The boy begs for help. His mother is in danger. Dale immediately senses something off. Still, they follow. They leave their escort knights behind and move through a maze of narrow alleys. Dale analyzes the situation. The request wasn't directed at an adult. It was aimed specifically at Charlotte. Suspicious. He looks up. A man is watching from the rooftop. Dale narrows his eyes. That's someone from the Thieves' Guild, which means this was planned. And the one behind it? Count Brandenburg, their target, is Charlotte. The boy says he'll go bring his mother. He disappears inside. Then, men step out from the alleyways. They surround them. The leader smirks. What are children doing in a place like this? He tells Dale they only want the girl. If he leaves now, he won't get hurt. Dale laughs. He says he swore to protect her, even from trash like them. The leader sighs, says the boy's chivalry is admirable, but misguided. Looks like he'll have to learn how painful the world can be. Charlotte whispers nervously. She left her sword behind. Dale steps forward, calm, and tells her not to be afraid. Dale steps forward calmly, recognizing this as the perfect opportunity to test a new technique using the shadow cloak. Under the guise of self-defense, two of the men rush him from the front while the other two charge in from behind, surrounding him from all sides. In an instant, a dense black aura spreads outward, engulfing the alley in darkness. The men hesitate in confusion, but the leader immediately senses the danger and reacts. Dale notes how quickly the leader caught on, identifying him as likely a high-ranking thief. The men retreat to create distance, but one of them lags behind by a fraction. That moment is enough. The shadows latch onto him. This is the technique Dale developed after reaching the second circle. Shadow constructs that act like parasites, moving independently to invade and override a target, turning them into an undead puppet. The man begins convulsing as darkness seeps through his body, twisting and warping him. The others can only watch in horror as he transforms, his movements becoming unnatural, his body jerking and distorting until he is no longer human. Hunger replaces his voice. They realize immediately he has been converted. The leader snaps out of it and orders his men to stop hesitating and kill both the undead and Dale, regardless of his status as the Duke's son. He believes that if they simply stab him, he will die like anyone else. The leader then launches forward, moving erratically through the alley at extreme speed, using walls and surfaces to propel himself. His aura flares as he executes rapid assassination maneuvers, confident that no one could block such attacks in this environment. Daggers fly toward Dale. They are instantly stopped. The leader realizes his mistake too late. He is airborne, with nowhere to go. Dale lowers a portion of his defensive wall slightly and fires at point-blank range. The buckshot variation of ice bullet tears into him, shredding his body, though his aura barely prevents immediate death. At the same time, Dale snipes another attacker out of the air, killing him instantly. Charlotte rounds the corner, asking if everything is over, but what she sees stops her. The undead Dale created is tearing through the remaining assassins. The leader drops to his knees, completely overwhelmed. As he tries to retreat, Dale observes that aura users are indeed durable. The man gathers himself, grips his blade, and attempts one final charge. He is cut apart instantly. The undead finishes the rest. Dale leaves it to handle the cleanup and walks over to Charlotte, checking if she is unharmed. She confirms that she is, though still shaken. Behind them, one of the surviving men attempts to escape. Dale notices immediately. He fires, destroying the man's foot and stopping him in place. As the man screams, Dale recalls the parasite. The shadow returns and consumes him, reducing his body to nothing. Another survivor begs for his life, offering to reveal everything he knows. Dale briefly considers it, then kills him without hesitation, having no interest in what he might say. Silence settles over the alley. Charlotte approaches slowly, looking around in shock as she tries to process what just happened. Dale explains that this is the true face of House Saxon, the power that others fear, and the same power that will protect her. He questions how she feels seeing it firsthand, whether it frightens her. She admits that it does, at least a little, but accepts it because he used that power to protect her. After the vow they made, she has already decided. His house will serve as the shield that protects hers, and in return, she will become the sword that fights for him. She resolves to grow stronger. Dale is impressed by her resolve. He then admits that part of the reason he brought her into his household was due to guilt over what happened to her father 24 years ago, when he killed him on the castle wall. He extends his hand, acknowledging that her decision to stand by him carries far more meaning than he initially realized. Elsewhere, at Count Brandenburg's estate, he reacts with fury upon receiving a box containing the severed head of one of his men. Along with it comes a letter from Duke Alan, formally inviting him to visit the duchy. The message is polite, but the intent is unmistakable. This is not a request. It is a command. Brandenburg understands that he cannot refuse. A few days later, he arrives at the Saxon castle. Alan greets him with composed courtesy, expressing appreciation for his prompt arrival despite the short notice. Brandenburg responds outwardly with confidence, masking his tension, but his attention immediately shifts to Dale and Charlotte. Alan addresses the recent incident, the attempted kidnapping carried out in broad daylight, which has already become a matter of widespread concern throughout the Empire. He makes it clear that he can infer the circumstances behind it and expresses disdain that someone who claims loyalty would be involved in such disgraceful actions. Before Brandenburg can respond, Alan raises his hand. A massive surge of aura erupts across the room. Brandenburg barely manages to block it using his holy sword, but the men accompanying him are not as fortunate. They freeze in place as their bodies begin to disintegrate. Their pleas for mercy are cut short as they turn to ash. Brandenburg watches in shock, realizing that even elite knights could not withstand that power. He recognizes the terrifying extent of Alan's mastery over dark magic. He attempts to protest, but Alan silences him immediately. The atmosphere shifts completely. Alan steps forward, his presence alone overwhelming the space. The command is absolute. Brandenburg is ordered to kneel. When he hesitates and questions the consequences, Alan makes it clear that there will be no second warning. The weight of his authority leaves no room for defiance. Brandenburg grits his teeth, acknowledging that even though he has justification on his side, he hadn't expected the Duke to push things this far. Despite his frustration, he lowers himself to his knees. Alan states that, as Brandenburg already understands, he summoned him here in the interest of maintaining peace. However, he makes it unmistakably clear that if Brandenburg ever lays a hand on those children again, he will personally erase every last member of House Brandenburg. He asks him to accept this warning sincerely. The tone shifts as Alan calmly remarks that Brandenburg must be tired from his journey and should go rest and warm himself. Brandenburg restrains his anger, responding that the Duke's generosity is humbling, but circumstances prevent him from staying any longer. Alan simply smirks, offering a polite remark about wishing him a safe return. Dale observes that what his father just demonstrated to one of the Emperor's most loyal retainers will not go unnoticed. This moment will become the spark that ignites unrest across the Empire. What begins as a small ember will spread into something far greater, and eventually, it will become his responsibility to cut down the holy swordsman himself. He hopes the day comes sooner rather than later. Once word spreads that Brandenburg was forced to kneel before the Duke, the very core of the Empire will begin to shake. Outside Alan's office, a cloth is lifted from a table, revealing several bodies. Cephia asks what she is looking at. Alan explains that these are the corpses of members of the Thieves' Guild who attacked Dale, and that every one of them was dealt with by Dale himself. She reacts with visible shock. Some of the bodies are torn apart, others riddled with holes, their insides exposed. For the first time, doubt creeps into her mind. She begins to question whether her teachings have led him down the wrong path. Alan points out that this is precisely why someone like her is needed. Guiding a talent as extraordinary as Dale's requires more than raw strength. It requires wisdom. He offers her the position of chief advisor. She understands what that means. He is not just asking her to remain as a teacher, but to become part of the household itself. Alan emphasizes that Dale depends on her deeply. Even he cannot guide the boy with strength alone, but with her support, things can change. She accepts, recognizing the weight of responsibility she is taking on. At this moment, her most important task is to understand how that child sees the world. Time passes, and it becomes Dale's 10th birthday. Unlike the previous year, the celebration is much larger, with even more nobles from the imperial court attending. Among them, the most notable guest is Marquis Yuris. Earlier, Guests have been admiring the lavish preparations, surprised by how refined everything is. Many of them realize their previous assumptions about this place have been completely wrong. Dale understands exactly why they are here. The central nobles of the imperial capital, aligned with the emperor's faction, form the largest and most powerful political force in the empire. Their presence at this banquet is not simply ceremonial, it serves as a warning. It is a message from the imperial family that any insult toward the holy swordsman will not be ignored. The one delivering that message stands before him, Yuri's. Known as the Crimson Lord, Yuri's is the master of the Red Tower, a man who pursues strength through flame, fury, and absolute order. The Red Tower's mages are infamous for their belief that power defines righteousness, and they have never hesitated to act in pursuit of ambition. Dale himself had once been subjected to their experimental modifications. Yuri's acknowledges Dale's reputation, recognizing his unmatched magical talent and the rumors that he single-handedly eliminated a horde of orcs to protect his family's knights. As expected of the Duke's son, Dale responds politely, expressing hope that Yuri's enjoys the evening and thanking him for his words. Afterward, Dale steps away from the banquet hall, feeling drained. Being celebrated like this every year feels exhausting. He would much rather be training with Charlotte, but her official role as his mother's maid makes that difficult. If it became known that the daughter of the Divine Sword was sparring with him, it could put her at risk. He considers training alone instead. Then he hears a scream. A man's voice follows, telling a maid to learn her place. Dale recognizes the voice and moves toward it. He finds Eve pinned to the ground, pleading for them to stop. The man mocks her for invoking the Duke's name, questioning how someone of her status could dare to do so. He draws a knife, pointing out that everyone is busy celebrating the young master's birthday, and presses the blade to her throat. He suggests that instead of wasting time, he would rather spend it with her, warning that if she resists again, he will kill her. He tells her to stop resisting and obey. Dale steps in. In a world built on strict hierarchy, no one expects someone like him to act first. But he does. A shot flies past the man's ear. The man freezes, dropping to the ground in shock. Dale could have killed him, but chose not to, at least not yet. He knows that directly opposing people tied to the Emperor is not a trivial matter. Even so, he has no intention of backing down. The man demands to know what he thinks he's doing. Dale gives a single command. Kneel. Petro questions what Dale is talking about, but Dale immediately presses him, asking if he's deaf and ordering him to get on his knees and apologize to Eve, making it clear that she serves his household and is a member of House Saxon. Petro grows irritated and declares that he stands there as a representative of the Emperor himself. From his perspective, being insulted over the defense of a mere maid is equivalent to insulting the Emperor. Dale responds by questioning whether the Emperor takes pleasure in violating servants from noble houses for sport. Petro reacts with outrage, demanding how he could say something like that. At that moment, Alan and the others arrive at the scene. Dale gives Petro one final warning, telling him to kneel. Yuri's finds the situation amusing. Alan asks what is happening, and Dale explains that Petro attempted to assault Eve. Petro quickly shifts his tone, expressing relief that Alan has arrived and claiming that the young master is acting recklessly. As Petro begins to stand, Dale immediately stops him, making it clear that he never gave permission for him to rise. Dale then addresses everyone present, stating that those entrusted to act in the Emperor's name carry a great responsibility. Yet this man has tried to defile a maid, thereby tarnishing the Emperor's name. Because of that, he cannot allow such behavior to go unpunished. Yuri's laughs, acknowledging that Dale's reasoning is sharp and that what he said is entirely correct. Someone entrusted with the Emperor's authority lowering himself to such behavior is disgraceful. Petro begins to wonder if Yuri's is about to defend him, but instead, Yuri's raises his hand and summons flames. Without hesitation, he directs the fire at Petro, treating him as nothing more than a worthless insect. Panicked, Petro tries to run, but his body slows him down. The flames strike him from behind, engulfing him. His screams fill the air as he burns. Yuri's remarks that Dale spoke nothing but the truth and frames the act as the purification of someone who dared to insult the Empire and its authority. He expresses interest in Dale's future, making it clear that he is trying to draw closer to him. Dale recognizes this intention immediately. Once the incident settles, the Imperial representatives depart, and calm returns to the household. Sometime later, Eve wakes Dale, informing him that it is time to get up. He thanks her, and she modestly brushes it off. He senses hesitation in her and asks if there is something she wants to say. She thanks him, saying it is an honor for someone like her to serve him. Dale questions if that was the reason for her hesitation. Having lived in two different worlds, he still finds himself unfamiliar with this kind of emotion and realizes he will need time to get used to it. He thanks her as well, but at the same time, he understands the weight of his position as the eldest son of the house. He resolves to use that weight however necessary, even if it means one day bringing down the empire itself. Later, Alan speaks with him, noting that while he is clever, his recent behavior has been unusual. He asks Dale to explain himself. Dale reflects before answering, stating that if the otherworldly hero had not died in battle with the divine sword, then the next place that sword would have been wielded would have been within their duchy. Alan calls it a blasphemous claim and questions how he could be so certain. Dale briefly considers how to respond, then explains that he has come to this conclusion based on records and reasoning. He believes that in his previous life, the Empire had already begun plotting against House Saxon. They abandoned the hero, fearing what might happen if their control over him was lost. He continues, explaining that even after the hero defeated the Demon King, the Empire failed to eliminate the darkness in that domain. Instead, they imposed unreasonable orders, forcing House Saxon to cultivate the land and turn it into imperial territory, demanding constant sacrifice. They even assigned that burden directly to their house. As long as the darkness in that land remains, their suffering will never end. At the same time, people both within the Empire and beyond its northern borders label them as a clan of darkness. Just as the Empire abandoned the hero, it would eventually seek to eliminate any internal threat. If House Saxon were seen as dangerous, they would be targeted as well. Alan questions how Dale knows the hero was abandoned. Dale clarifies that his conclusions are based on logical deductions drawn from historical records. Officially, the hero is said to have died honorably in battle against the divine sword, but that explanation does not fully align with the circumstances. Alan admits that his reaction is natural, as only a select few know the truth behind the hero's death. Dale continues, stating that if his reasoning is correct, then the Empire operates as an oppressive force, conquering weaker nations and consolidating power through control and fear. Alan is struck by the depth of his thinking, noting that his insight is far beyond what one would expect from someone his age. He then asks what course of action Dale believes their house should take. Dale answers without hesitation. They cannot coexist with the Empire. Therefore, it must be destroyed. Alan is taken aback, and the atmosphere becomes tense. He questions whether Dale truly understands the weight of what he is suggesting. Dale clarifies that he is not proposing an immediate rebellion. Instead, he is speaking of a plan that would unfold over the next 10 years. Alan asks why 10 years. Dale explains that resistance movements already exist across the continent, with factions pushing for independence. There are also vassals who live in fear that the Empire may one day turn against them. The economy continues to decline, and with it, banditry rises day by day. Even though the unification of the 7 continents has already been achieved, the aftermath of war has only made things worse. By the time the situation reaches its peak, they will need enough strength to defend their house against the Empire. They will also support resistance forces operating across multiple regions. Dale continues laying out his plan to bring down the Empire, speaking at length until the sun begins to set. When he finally finishes, he asks his father what he thinks. Alan begins to chuckle, and then breaks into full laughter. He says that Dale's talents truly have no limits, that he can see things Alan himself cannot, and that he is proud to call him his son. From this point forward, Dale will no longer be treated as just the Duke's eldest son or as a 10-year-old child. He will be recognized as the heir, the one who will one day lead their house. As the head of the house, Alan declares that he will listen to and respect his words. Dale smiles, saying he has been waiting for this moment. Now that he has been granted the authority to influence the power of the house, his father tells him to speak freely and asks what decision he will make first. Dale understands that this means he will be treated as an equal. With that in mind, he requests permission to take the Tower Trial in the necropolis. The Tower Trial is a system used to determine a mage's rank. Participants face the guardians of the magic tower, and defeating higher-rank guardians raises their standing. Those who reach the top earn the title of Tower Elder, while the one who conquers the summit becomes the Magic Tower Master. Alan questions whether he truly intends to enter such a dangerous place, warning that it is far too early for him. Dale has not even completed his 3rd circle yet, and the risk of death is high. Dale responds that it is only a matter of time. Alan explains that most mages only achieve the 3rd circle in their mid-20s. Even for someone like Dale, who has already reached the 2nd circle, it would still be extremely difficult. Dale insists that this decision is not just for himself, but for the house as well. When asked why, he explains that proving himself through the trial will solidify his position as heir. It will give him a reputation built on undeniable results rather than rumors and exaggerated stories. Alan realizes that Dale intends to use the tower as a means of establishing his legitimacy. This makes him smile and laugh again before ultimately leaving the decision in Dale's hands. Dale states that he will prove it. A few days later, they arrive at the necropolis, the city of death. At the gate, Alan steps forward as the crowd greets him loudly, welcoming him with great enthusiasm. Meanwhile, Dale feels exhausted from the journey, wondering if he pushed himself too hard once again. The onlookers begin whispering, questioning whether the rumors about Dale are true. Some note that he does not look well, while others argue that his swordsmanship is said to rival the knights of the Duke's household. Then a man steps forward, laughing confidently as he introduces himself as Velik. He claims to be the top graduate of the academy and declares that he is the one most destined to win the tower trial. His companion supports him, confidently stating that he will crush a child like Dale without difficulty. At that moment, a woman approaches and greets them, showing respect to the tower master. Alan acknowledges her, and it is revealed that her name is Iris. She is an elder of the tower and serves as the Secretary General, overseeing administrative duties in Alan's absence. She expresses that it is an honor to serve the young master. Alan informs Dale that Iris will assist him during the trial. Dale accepts and places himself under her guidance. Iris explains that 59 academy graduates have gathered, and all of them will participate in the trial alongside him. She opens the doors, revealing the other participants inside. Standing before them, she begins explaining the first stage, the first-tier trial. She instructs everyone to check the necklace around their necks, known as the life necklace. The trial is essentially a battle royale based on life points. Each necklace contains a protective shield spell and a single life point. When a participant lands a valid hit using the corpses scattered across the field, the opponent's necklace activates its shield and shatters, resulting in elimination. The attacker gains 1 additional life point. Any participant who reaches a total of 3 life points advances to the next floor. She adds that using artifacts is strictly forbidden, and anyone caught doing so will be disqualified. The participants recognize that these rules are designed to eliminate weaker competitors quickly, though they comment on how bluntly it is presented. Velik suggests that everyone should gang up on Dale, calling him a monster for already being at the level of a third circle mage. His companion questions whether targeting him is allowed, but Velik assures him that from the moment they entered, they became competitors, and anything within the rules is fair game. Dale simply laughs, noting that Velik at least has confidence, and expresses interest in seeing whether his abilities can match his words. Iris announces the start of the trial. As the signal is given, everyone immediately begins casting their spells. Dale remains standing at the center, surrounded by them all. At the start of the trial, all the participants immediately raise undead and send them charging toward Dale. One of the undead reaches him first and swings down, but the attack is blocked. The others are caught off guard when they realize Dale has already summoned his own undead. His is noticeably stronger, infused with the ice element, and as it lets out a roar, several of the other undead falter and drop their weapons. They quickly understand that he is combining ice magic with necromancy, making him a dual-element mage, and they can hardly believe it. Dale's undead cuts down one opponent and moves in from behind for another strike, but when an enemy attempts a surprise attack, his undead intercepts it. Dale points out that trying to destroy his undead is pointless since it is reinforced with ice armor, and his summon finishes off the attacker without difficulty. Velik begins to protest, claiming that Dale is breaking the rules. Only necromancy and control over undead should be allowed, and enhancements like this should be forbidden. Dale counters that there is no rule stating he can only strengthen undead with dark magic. Since the trial continues uninterrupted, it becomes clear that he is correct. Frustrated, Velik and his ally start shouting, urging the others to band together and overwhelm Dale with numbers. Dale remarks that it is unfortunate his artifact is banned, but given the situation, he will simply handle it another way. He begins weaving through the incoming attacks, closing the distance to his opponents. One of the undead blocks his path and swings down, but Dale ducks, not to evade, but to catch the motion and use it to build momentum. He counters immediately, striking the arm of the undead, seizing its weapon, and cutting it cleanly in half. Velik and the others are stunned, unable to comprehend how easily he dismantled it, before realizing that Dale is reinforcing the blade to increase its durability. Another undead charges him, and Dale leaps into the air to avoid the strike before countering mid-motion, slicing it apart as well. Velik declares that Dale has just destroyed his last undead and assumes that, as a mage, Dale will struggle in close combat. However, Dale continues advancing, cutting down opponent after opponent. When he finally reaches Velik, the latter panics and immediately surrenders. Dale laughs, pointing out that it is not as if he is actually going to die. Even so, Velik is paralyzed with fear. Dale knocks him on the head, and Velik calls him a monster before losing consciousness. With that, the first trial concludes. Dale clears it alone, accumulating all 60 life points. He acknowledges this as his first true step forward. The second tier begins, where the objective is to defeat a guardian creature known as a flesh golem. Typically, survivors of the first tier work together, but since Dale eliminated everyone, he must face it alone. Unlike the previous stage, all forms of magic are now permitted, except for artifacts. The golem slams its massive hand down where Dale had been standing, but it misses. Moments later, it notices its own hand beginning to burn and decay. Confused, it examines the damage as Dale employs a technique known as accelerated decay. Alan and Iris observe this, noting how unusual it is. They question why Dale would choose to rot the creature instead of destroying it outright. Dale reflects on his past life, where such strategies were just as important as raw power, referring to it as biochemical warfare, even though the smell is unbearable. Through this method, he dismantles the golem, demonstrating how black magic can replicate the grotesque effects of biochemical decay. By the end of the trial, he pushes through to the 10th tier, setting a new record. He is granted 4 days of rest before attempting the 11th tier. Meanwhile, due to the overwhelming defeat of all other participants in the first tier, a rare retrial is authorized for them, everyone except Dale. That same night, Dale is seen resting near a fountain when Sephia approaches him, telling him he performed well. He credits her teachings for his success, which makes her genuinely happy. He then unexpectedly asks her if she would like to go out with him. Surprised, she hesitates as he explains that there is a festival happening in the city and suggests they go together. Though confused by a child asking her on a date, she agrees, assuming he simply does not understand what he is implying. Dale is fully aware of how she interprets it, quietly amused by the misunderstanding. They head to the festival together. Sephia asks if he is tired after the trial, and he reassures her that he is fine, noting that he still has a few days before the next stage begins. As they walk, the atmosphere becomes somewhat awkward. He comments on how beautiful the moon is that night, and she agrees. The conversation does not flow as easily as before, yet the silence between them is not uncomfortable. He reflects that it has always been this way with her, perhaps because she believed in him from the very beginning. He finds himself wanting to grow closer to her. A few days earlier, when he finally reached the third circle, Dale came to understand what it truly meant to face his inner world. As his nose began to bleed, he pushed his mana beyond the limits of the second circle, forcing it to overflow. Only by enduring the rampage of unstable mana could he break through to the next stage. As the surge intensified, he felt as if a sword pierced straight through his chest. When he turned, instead of an attacker, he found himself standing in a vast, snow-covered field. He recalled what Sephia had once told him, that deep meditation reveals one's inner world, and realized that he was now witnessing his own. In that moment, he recognized himself as Hansung again, acknowledging this as his world of realization. But as soon as he reached that conclusion, the world shattered, and he returned to being Dale. He understood then that there had been nothing there from the start, only emptiness. Within that hollow world, Sephia had been the one who reached out to him. That realization made it clear why she was the one who brought light into his otherwise empty existence. Back in the present, he tells her that he likes her. She is surprised and asks him to repeat himself, and he does. She smiles and pulls him into a hug, treating him as a child as she tells him that she understands and that she likes him very much as well. Dale reflects on how living a second life certainly has its advantages. A few days later, the 11th trial begins. Dale notes that he has made no progress with Sephia, as she dismisses his feelings as nothing more than a childish crush. For now, his focus must remain on the trial. Iris explains that this stage is a one-on-one duel, with the winner advancing to the 12th floor. Dale's opponent is a third circle master named Albert Rosenheim, who expresses his respect while making it clear that he will not hold back just because Dale is a child. Dale smirks, recognizing that with the artifact restriction lifted, he can now use his full arsenal of strategies. The life necklace will no longer guarantee safety, and there is no reason for him to hold back. He intends to demonstrate the difference in their power completely. Before Iris can even finish announcing the start of the duel, Albert launches a surprise attack, triggering an explosion. He warns Dale to stay sharp, stating that he is nothing like the Academy rookies Dale faced before, and declares that his streak will end here as he unleashes a barrage of dark arrows. Dale dodges each attack while analyzing the situation. He notes that initiating an attack before the duel officially begins is clearly a violation, yet the judges make no move to stop it. They're likely interested in seeing how strong he truly is. To him, this reflects the ruthless meritocracy of mages, something he has always disliked. Albert continues his assault, commanding his undead forces to rise and obey him. Dale finds the display excessive, but acknowledges that Albert is still stronger than the average opponent he has faced so far. As the attacks continue, Dale evades them one by one. Albert questions how long he plans to keep dodging, pointing out that he cannot win without counterattacking. Dale finally steps back from another strike and retaliates, cutting down one of the undead with his artifact. Albert responds immediately by triggering a corpse explosion, causing the fallen undead to swell and detonate. He confidently declares himself the victor, only to realize that Dale has vanished. Dale reappears behind him, calling out the cowardice of attacking a child unfairly. Albert panics, unable to locate him, until Dale reveals himself, remarking on how flustered he looks. He acknowledges the sneak attack is clever, but far from sufficient. At that moment, Dale's artifact reacts, asking for permission to consume Albert as its shadowy appendages wrap around his legs. Dale allows it, cautioning it not to overindulge. The scene turns horrifying as Albert's limbs begin to twist and break under the pressure. He screams in agony, begging for mercy. Dale, unfazed, orders the artifact to stop before it goes too far. Albert collapses, defeated, and Dale is declared the winner. Turning to the remaining participants, Dale casually asks who will face him next. Faced with what they just witnessed, everyone immediately surrenders, resulting in consecutive default victories. He continues advancing through the tower, refining his third magic circle with each battle as he overcomes one guardian after another. By the time he reaches the 20th tier, he finally encounters a truly formidable opponent, the Headless Knight. This entity, created by one of the tower elders, is unlike anything he has faced before. Even for Dale, this may be his limit. Dale remarks that it would be boring if things went as expected. As he raises his hand, he activates the intimidation effect of his shadow cloak. The overwhelming pressure spreads across the area, affecting even the observers. The Headless Knight responds by dropping to one knee, shocking everyone watching. But from Dale's perspective, the scene is entirely different. Instead of the battlefield, he sees his own inner world standing before the knight. The Headless Knight extends its sword toward Dale in a gesture of respect. In response, Dale calmly commands it to end itself. Without hesitation, the knight drives its blade through its own chest, its form collapsing as nothing more than empty armor falling to the ground. Its loyalty runs so deep that it abandons its role as a guardian entirely. For a moment, silence fills the space, and Dale realizes he may have gone a bit too far. He acknowledges that their shock is understandable. A construct has betrayed its creator and pledged loyalty to him instead, which serves as proof that he has reached a level comparable to a Tower Elder. Even so, he had not intended for things to escalate this far. Having already proven more than enough, he decides there is no need to continue. As he turns toward the exit, people question why he is leaving when he could clearly advance further. Dale explains that even if he is capable of going higher, there is a boundary he has no intention of crossing. Beyond this tier lies a realm feared even by monsters, something entirely unknown. With that decision, his trial comes to an end. In response to his performance, the entire tower rises in unison like a military formation. Nobles and elders alike demonstrate their loyalty, and every mage within the tower pays their respects to both father and son. Dale's overwhelming display of power begins to unify the northern territories under their banner. Back in the Northern Duchy, the Black Cavalry is seen carrying out another subjugation mission, with Dale now commanding them. After successfully completing the tower trial, his father entrusted him with leadership of the Orc Extermination Squad, a responsibility far beyond what would normally be given to a 10-year-old. Despite this, no one questions his ability, and as the rightful heir, he steadily begins consolidating control over the north. Upon returning from a mission, Dale reports that they eliminated 145 orcs. When asked about casualties, he states that only 3 sustained minor injuries, with no fatalities. His father asks whether he used magic to protect them, but Dale clarifies that their success was purely the result of their training. Satisfied, his father praises him, and Dale responds with a smile. Helmet observes that Dale has already grown comfortable commanding large cavalry units. Dale attributes this to Helmet's teachings in swordsmanship, tactics, and military strategy. Helmet remarks that at this pace, it will not be long before Dale is leading full-scale territorial wars. Dale accepts this without hesitation, welcoming the prospect of a greater stage. During training with Charlotte, her improvement becomes evident as she focuses on her footwork. She executes a precise thrust with her rapier, but it is still not enough to overcome Dale. He easily evades and counters, forcing her onto the defensive. As he presses forward and dashes past her, he prepares to finish the exchange, only to find her blade suddenly at his throat when he turns back. He acknowledges her progress, though she remains dissatisfied, pointing out that he had already placed his blade at her throat first. She expresses frustration at not being able to match him. Dale realizes he may have pushed her too hard. She points out that he is already a third circle mage and has cleared the 20th tier of the tower, and since then, everyone constantly refers to him as the young master. She believes people will eventually grow tired of it. Dale reassures her that she will become stronger as well, noting that for a 10-year-old, she is already exceptional. She protests being treated like a child, only for him to point out that she still is one. She fires back that he is as well, though he insists that he is mentally an adult. She laughs it off, choosing to drop the argument. Later, Dale trains with Helmet, focusing on the hammer and anvil tactic. This strategy involves deploying cavalry on one or both flanks to break through the enemy's wings and encircle them, while infantry holds the center and blocks the opposing cavalry. The name comes from the idea of striking iron placed on an anvil with a hammer. It is a tactic heavily reliant on cavalry strength. Dale notes that such a strategy is only possible because of the Black Cavalry, and that the patterns of warfare seem consistent across different worlds. He then asks about Charlotte's progress. Helmet explains that while she cannot yet match Dale, her talent is undeniable. She has already built a solid foundation in swordsmanship and will soon begin formally inheriting their aura cultivation and techniques. However, there is a concern. Dale recognizes that the issue lies in her compatibility with her sword style. While mages refine mana into magic through heart-formed circles, knights refine mana into aura through cultivation. Mages establish magic towers through structured mastery, while knights establish orders by passing down their techniques. The Black Cavalry of the North exemplifies overwhelming force, embodying a style that crushes opponents through sheer power. In contrast, Charlotte's swordsmanship emphasizes speed and fluidity, relying on swift, free-flowing motion. Even with her talent, she may one day reach the lower ranks of the 7 sword masters. But even then, she will never attain the pinnacle, the position of the first sword once held by her father. Dale recognizes that Helmet is referring to the Sword of Blossom, a technique that once defined Charlotte's lineage. However, that sword art was lost with the fall of the Night Nation, and he wonders if it may have disappeared from the world entirely. From that point on, his days become even more relentless. Balancing monster subjugation with constant study, his reputation continues to rise. Eventually, the time comes for him to demonstrate the results of his growth. During a meeting, Alan asks for clarification after hearing unexpected news. A report confirms that a neighboring territory, led by Baron Parker, has filed for a territorial war, claiming ownership of a copper mine that rightfully belongs to them. Dale reflects that in this world, borders between lands are often unclear, but even so, it is absurd for a low-ranking noble to challenge a high-ranking house like theirs. The report continues. If they refuse to yield the mine or accept the challenge, Count Brandenburg has declared that he will support the Baron's claim. Furthermore, a letter has arrived offering to dispatch the Knights of St. Magdalena in exchange for a share of the mine's profits. Dale clenches his teeth, recognizing the move for what it is. Brandenburg clearly has not forgotten the humiliation of being forced to kneel, and now he is attempting to retaliate indirectly. Rather than initiating open war, he has chosen a contested border where his involvement remains ambiguous. Dale immediately declares that he will personally command the battle alongside their knights. Alan refuses. He states that it is too early for Dale to bear such responsibility and warns him not to speak recklessly. Fighting monsters is entirely different from waging war against people. He assures Baron Greenbelt that he will personally protect the mine. Greenbelt expresses his gratitude, while Dale is left visibly frustrated. He sighs, knowing he is capable, yet unable to convince his father. Helmet approaches him, advising him not to take Alan's words too harshly. While he may be disappointed, there must be a reason behind the decision, and it is likely that Alan is preparing something for him. Changing the subject, Helmet introduces a strategic board game and offers to teach him. Dale immediately recognizes it as chess, though in this world it is called a war game. Helmet explains that it closely mirrors real warfare, making it complex but extremely valuable once mastered. Playing against each other would allow them to explore battlefield strategies in depth. Without hesitation, Dale grabs the board and rushes off, declaring that this is exactly what he needed. Helmet calls after him, confused about where he is going. Shortly after, Dale presents his proposal to Alan. If he can defeat him in the war game, he will be allowed to participate in the territorial war. He explains that war is not just about strength, but a contest of minds, and he wants to be evaluated through strategy. Helmet tries to intervene, but Alan stops him, deciding to accept the challenge. If Dale wins, he will grant his request. If he loses, he must abandon the idea entirely. The match begins with Helmet observing. Despite Alan granting himself advantages in troop numbers, unit strength, and terrain, Dale manages to win 2 out of 3 matches. Helmet is stunned, unable to believe that Dale has defeated the Duke under such conditions. Dale calmly asks if his father will honor the agreement. Alan sighs, asking when he even learned the game. Dale claims he studied it from a book in the library years ago, though this is not the truth. A promise is a promise. Alan grants him full command of the knights for the upcoming battle. Helmet once again tries to object, but Alan remains firm. The honor of their house is on the line, and failure will not be tolerated. He asks Dale one final time if he can truly shoulder the burden of the battle on his own. Dale answers without hesitation, asking for his trust and promising to prove himself. Alan accepts, instructing him to demonstrate everything he has built so far and return victorious. Elsewhere, in Brandenburg's territory, he is visibly agitated as he confronts his son, Philip. He demands to know what he has been doing, mocking his incompetence. Philip dismisses the situation, pointing out that their opponent is just a 10-year-old leading an army, and asks for permission to crush him. Brandenburg slams his hand down in anger, calling Dale a monster far beyond anything Philip could ever match. He berates his son, calling him inferior to a child and criticizing him for failing to secure Charlotte earlier. Despite his frustration, he assigns Philip to accompany the army, though only as a figurehead. The true command will be handled by Sir Mills. Philip protests, but Brandenburg makes it clear that his role is merely to stand there and represent the force. As Philip is led away, Brandenburg reflects on the situation. He cannot personally take the field against the child, and he wonders whether this entire scenario was part of the Duke's plan from the beginning. A few days later, in Baron Greenbelt's territory, tension hangs in the air as he waits anxiously. Dale arrives, greeted with relief and gratitude for coming from so far away. However, some of the Baron's men remain skeptical, questioning whether they should trust someone so young. Others argue that his reputation as a prodigy is reason enough. Greenbelt admits that his presence is reassuring, though he still finds it hard to believe they sent a child. He suggests attending a banquet first, but Dale immediately refuses, stating that there is no time for such formalities. Instead, he draws his blade and points it forward, declaring that he wants to inspect the condition of the troops under his command. Among them, he intends to identify the strongest soldier.